Okay, welcome back. So we're going to have our session is enhancing your web applications interface. I'm Melinda Gallo and this is Gilles d'Anjou. We both work at 4D in Paris. Gilles is a senior project manager and I'm a project manager and technical writer at 4D. We're actually going to be, in this session, we're going to show you how to create a web application based on a graphical mockup that we created in Photoshop. We're going to basically show you how we took a Photoshop mockup and recreated a lot of the same effects in Wakanday using HTML5 and CSS. So some of Wakanday's powerful built-in features include manipulating the styles for widgets without writing any CSS code, creating web components for both the graphical and functional areas of our web application, and using the container widget as a base to a few of our graphical objects. So first we're going to run you through a classical development process for a web application. So generally a client defines his or her requirements to a program manager. The program manager creates a functional prototype. A graphical designer is hired to create the visual identity and graphical standards for the application in Photoshop. A front-end developer takes the Photoshop files and creates a graphical mock-up of the page in HTML. And then you have the back-end developer who integrates the graphical mock-up with the features defined in the functional prototype. So to show you how we're going to do this in a web application that we created, so we created an education school application. And so this is our functional prototype. So we wanted to have a person search for a course, get a list of courses and the description so that they can sign up for one of the courses in the web application. So it is built up of the following areas. We have our header and footer, which includes the logo and login area. We have a menu bar, a browsing filtering area. So we have a category, range of the fee, day of the week, the user wants to take the class, a specific period of time, as well as a teacher, which can either be a staff or guest teacher, or an actual teacher by name, which are the checkboxes at the bottom. We also have 3 other pages in our web application that we're not going to go over in this session, but they're the My Courses pages, which is going to list classes to which the student applied, a profile, which is their personal profile, and an About page for our application. So first we're going to show you our graphical mockup that was created. Oops, sorry, I forgot about that. We have our course list area at the top right, sorry about that. And when you click on one of the courses, that bottom area, the course description, is going to show the map, teacher, and the apply button. Sorry about that. So the graphical mockup. So this is the graphical mockup we created in Photoshop. As with most graphical mockups in Photoshop, I don't know if most of you have used Photoshop, you have to create these in multiple layers. And we're going to do it a little differently in Wakanday. So we have the architecture of our web application. It's going to be made up of components, web components. And in Wakanday, web component is an HTML page that you customize either by design or function. And it can be used anywhere in your web application by specifying it inside of a component widget, which you can size to suit your needs. So the page architecture for our web application is the following. We have an HTML page. We have a page background component, which is going to be the design base. Then we have a web component for the design of each of the sections. So there's one component for those 3 sections, and then a functional web component for each of those 3 sections. So one's used for filtering the courses, the list, and then the description on top of that. 3rd area. So first we're going to show you how to create the header and footer of our of the page, which includes a graphical element with a bevel effect, which we're using in the header and footer. So before that we had to extract the textures from Photoshop that we needed to create 2 of the graphical web components. So the background of the page, including the header and footer with its logo box and navigational element. That's our header and footer. Then we have a logo box, texture, a tab background, a header section background, and a body section background. For each graphical element in Wakanda, we'll be defining a background color, importing the image, which is the texture that we just showed, and applying a gradient in Wakanda. So now we're going to create the header and footer. So the page header in Photoshop is composed of 2 layers. It has its semi-transparent texture image and then a color with a gradient effect. In Wakanda, we take advantage of the multiple gradient support of CSS3 to create the header. So we took a container widget and we added a turquoise background color, included a texture in the background, and defined a vertical gradient with an opacity of 70%. And all that was done in our GUI designer. And we got the exact same effect. So in Photoshop, we also had to in Photoshop, there was the bevel effect that we have. And it's done in 2 layers. And in Wakanda, we again took another container widget and applied a background color and added an inner shadow and a drop shadow in our GUI designer in the Styles tab. And we achieved the exact same result. So now we're going to go to Wakanda. And we're going to add the tab view widget to our main page. So on top of the design background component that we're going to have at the base of our page, we're going to add the navigation element, which is the tab that you see there. So our tab view widget normally would have the rounded corners on the top, and the bottom would be the straight line. And in our GUI designer, we actually were able to change the border at the bottom so that we have our radius at the bottom instead of the top. We also customized the different states of the tab view widget so that we could follow our graphical design. So we have the default state. We changed the texture, which was one of the images we imported from Photoshop, a background color, vertical gradient, and border radius. Then in our hover state, we actually just changed the text color. And in the active and selected, we changed the background color gradient. So it would have a different effect to it. And the disabled state, we changed the background gradient to light gray. So now we're going to design the background for all of our functional web components. So before we begin creating the actual web components, the 3 areas that you saw, the list, the searching area, the list, and then the details. We first needed to create the background that we're going to be using. So this component contains 2 container widgets, one for the header, which is that top thin one, and one for the bottom, which is the body. For both containers, we set the constraints so that they grow with the width of the column. So later when we're placing our component on the page, when we're designing it, we'll be able to have any size we'd like. So we can do the top and bottom sections, as well as that left thin column that we're going to have. For both containers, so for the header, we modified the borders for the top corners. Okay, so here he's just setting the constraints. So for the header, we modified the borders for the top corners so that they're going to be rounded. Adding the background. So that's the background texture for that. That's the background. You change the borders for the, I'll do that later. Now he's defining the vertical gradient. So the A is the alpha, so we're able to change the opacity for the gradient. And then the border, we're going to change the top 2 to give it that rounded corner effect. Then for the body, we added a background image again, which is one of the images we took from our Photoshop mockup. And again, we're defining a vertical gradient for it. And then we also added the inner and drop shadow. So we get that bevel effect on the bottom and left edges. You can see none of this, we haven't touched any of the CSS code. All of this is still in our GUI designer in the styles tab for the widget. So now we're going to create the filtering area. So the filtering area was that side panel on the left that we had. So first we needed to use our background component. There we go. And then we're going to place the widgets on top of that. So for the categories, we used a grid widget. And we wanted to have it appear more as a list instead of a grid. So first we're going to hide the header and footer in the Properties tab. We can format it. And then we're going to go to the Styles tab and set the background color of the body and sub-element rows even to transparent. And then we're going to remove the border and drop shadow. So now it's just going to appear as a list with our background coming straight through it. Next we have a slider. For this widget we modified the range gradient so that the colors are consistent with our application. As you can see, it comes with a specific coloring based on our skin that's set for our page. So we wanted that to be a turquoise gradient instead of orange. Next we have the calendar that we're going to put up so people can define a specific time period they want to search for a course. There we go. So yeah, in this instance, we only modified the background for it to be turquoise, because by default it was gray. Then we have checkboxes, which we're actually going to use for our teachers. So we changed the, where are you at? The box, the box element selected state and changed that background to turquoise because it was also orange. Then we have our radio button group widget, which we're going to use for our user to select if it's going to be a guest teacher or staff teacher. And by default, that we have an orange button when it is selected. So for this object, we can't change the background color. We have to actually change the icon that we're using. So he's just going to pop that in. Right. For the selected state. Perfect. So once we have the our side filtering component done, we're actually going to work on the list that we have at the top of our course list. I think. So again, we have in the background our graphical web component, the same one we used earlier. And we placed the different widgets on top of it. One thing that we did use in Wakanday was the Widget Skin option, which allows you to create styles for a specific widget, like our text. I think it's our text widget. And once you've defined them, you can actually use them anywhere else on your application. So here we've called it title. So now if we have another page, we can use the exact same widget skin, which is basically a class in CSS that's going to be global to your application. So then we went and created the course description page. So for this page, again, we have our background component, and we added our widgets on top of it. For the course description, so on this page, we actually have our text widgets. We have a Google Maps, an image widget, and a button as well. And we have a star rating up at the top. And what we did was we took a slider widget and modified it so we could have that star rating. So for the container, you're changing the gradient. Oh, the background we're changing to transparent, because eventually we're going to import our stars on top of that. This is that multiple background layers that we have. So here we use the white star for the container of the widget. So it'll be our background. So when it's not selected, it's going to be white. And then once you slide the handle, it's going to be, they're going to sequentially turn orange or yellow. Now the only tweak we actually had to make was in CSS, which was to take off the actual handle so that you don't see it visually, but you're going to be able to use one as if it were there. So now to put it all together, we're going to go back to our main page of our web application. So everything is in our main page. Okay. So there we have our background component for the page, which includes the logo and login area at the top. Then we added our tab view widget that you saw earlier. And we placed each of the web components in a component widget in their proper location. So we have in our left section, we have our filtering area. Top is the course list. And then that bottom section is a course description. So now we go into the browser. This is our actual web application. So as you see, we see searches for a course. You can change the range for the fee, which day you might want to take a course, like a Monday or Tuesday, and then even a period of time using the date, using the calendar. Use range for the calendar. So that's the range. And in the bottom section, you can define by teachers, so you can do guest or staff, or even an actual teacher's name. Then once he clicks on the list, you actually get that course description at the bottom. So we wanted to show you something that we built, which is another web component, just to show how transparent the images and colors are. So the reason we did all of that work was so that we could easily change any of the colors in our web application without having to go back and redo all of our Photoshop images. So here he's just changing various styles that we have already in our web application. So as you saw, we actually didn't write any CSS code except for the slider. Everything else was done in Wakanday. So basically, we just wanted to show you the benefits of using HTML5 and CSS3 so that we can make all of these modifications. And all of this without writing any CSS code. That was fast. It was faster than we thought. Anyone have any questions? Anyone has done any CSS work or Photoshop work? You've done some? Is it? Anyone have any questions? Low? That's too easy. We should have done something more difficult.
The skins that you've got, are you... Oh, thank you. Hi. So the skins that you're on that drop-down right there, those are supplied as part of the basic install? Is that right?
Which skin do you?
The drop-down skins that you're choosing right there?
No, it's skins I have made with the default skin of Wakanday.
Okay.
And I have modified every colors and background gradients and image to make different skins for my application.
If you wanted to take one of those and deploy that to other developers, could you do that easily?
Yeah, we make framework of CSS to build some skins you can deploy for a lot of applications. By default, we propose some default skin, but you can create your own one. Yeah.
And then it's pretty easy to use that over and over in different projects?
It will be more easy in Work 4 because we are working on it and make it more simple for developers. In Work 3, it's a little bit more difficult because every files are separated. So a developer must know the architecture of our skin CSS framework. Yeah.
Are the CSS skins for each are they designated out between each widget? Does each widget get a copy? When you modify something, it actually saves that skin to a widget definition? Is that what's going on?
We have two levels in our framework. One is for the description of the widget, and the second level is for colors. Yeah. In Work 4, we will merge the two levels to make it easy to find CSS style sheets for one widget.
Cool. Thanks.
The best way to define several styles and make the custom choose between styles and change every page in the application.
Yeah, it's what I have done in this widget. You can change the color, one color, and it will be replicated in all styles which have the same color.
All right, yeah. So you are modificating the CSS document.
Yeah, it is right because for now we don't use variables in CSS. So each time you use color, it has been replicated. In the next versions, we can define a set of colors you can use in your application, and if you change this variable, it will be changed in all places it is used.
Are you going to use less CSS for that?
Probably.
Cool.
Voilà, bien. Tu veux dire d'autres choses? Tu veux dire d'autres choses? Attends, on a 15 minutes.
Okay, I think it's all.
Thank you. Sorry, we're so quick. On a fait trop vite là.